Hey everyone, welcome to the channel where I share creepy and scary stories that will give you chills. If you love horror and spooky tales, make sure to subscribe and join me every week for a new story. Let's get into the dark side together. Rain splattered against the windshield, dull and persistent, like the house itself was already whispering its warnings. Ava adjusted the focus on her handheld camera, capturing the twisting gravel road ahead as the van crawled deeper into Blackridge Forest. The others were quiet, maybe from fatigue, or maybe from the growing sense that something was watching them already. To their left, trees leaned close like they were eavesdropping. The GPS had stopped working 20 minutes ago. "We should have seen it by now," Luca muttered. He was Ava's younger brother, sharp with tech, rough with people. His fingers tapped anxiously against his laptop. "It's supposed to be hidden," Ava said, eyes still on the trees. "That's the point." From the back, Maya stirred. She was pale, her hands tied around the old notebook, filled with symbols and lore. "It was designed to be forgotten," she said. "The original sanatorium plans were never filed. Everything was word of mouth. That's why it's perfect." Reed chuckled bitterly. "Great. Ghost stories and mudslides. My two favorite things." Theo, the quietest of them all, simply drove, eyes locked forward, knuckles white on the wheel. Then, as they rounded a narrow bend, the trees opened up. There it was, Blackridge Sanatorium, a monument to rotting brick and stained windows, 3 stories tall, with the upper right wing collapsed inward like a skull caved in by time. It sat in the forest like something that had grown there, not been built, half devoured by vines, windows dark and blind, no lights, no signs of recent activity. But the front door stood wide open. Inside, the air was dense, not just with dust, but with expectation. Their footsteps echoed too loud, like the building hadn't heard sound in decades. Ava turned to face the others. "We split up. Establish base camp in the foyer. Reed, get the power running if you can. Maya, start mapping. Theo, cameras outside. Luca, you're with me." The plan was efficient, professional, clinical. None of them saw the dark figure that passed behind the second-floor window, nor the soft click of the front door beginning to swing shut behind them. That night, as they reviewed the footage in the flickering glow of lanterns, Maya pointed at the corner of one frame. It was a shot from when Ava entered the main hallway. "There," she said, "behind the window." Luca zoomed in. The outline of a man, tall, hunched, barely visible. But the real shock was what he was wearing, a torn lab coat. Ava leaned in. "That's from the old staff photos." Reed frowned. "But this place was shut down in 1956. Luca looked up, voice quiet. "Then who's still walking the halls?" The halls were silent. A stale metallic smell lingered in the air, mixed with something sweeter, rotting, but hidden beneath layers of dust and mildew. Ava adjusted the focus on her camera again, hoping it would be the last time. But every time she zoomed in, the frame felt more distorted, more wrong. Something about the place made the camera twitch, the footage skipping, as if the building itself didn't want to be captured. The group had already set up their equipment in the foyer. Reed had managed to power up a few lights and connected the satellite for communication, though none of their devices had shown any reception. Maya was scribbling in her notebook, muttering to herself. She had already begun analyzing the symbols etched into walls, the mysterious, almost ritualistic marks that lined the entrance to every room they'd passed. "Ava," Luca called from the back. His voice sounded distant, more than it should have. She walked toward him, her footsteps echoing down the long hallway, and saw him standing by a cracked window. His laptop was open beside him, but his attention was on the weathered walls. "This place," Luca said, voice low, "it doesn't feel abandoned. It feels like it's still waiting for something." "Waiting?" Ava asked, but the moment the word left her lips, she felt it. The air in the hallway thickened. The silence grew louder, almost pressing in on them. "I'll check the upper floors," Reed volunteered, making his way up the stairs without waiting for permission. As an ex-psychologist, Reed often seemed immune to the eerie aspects of places like these. It was a part of his job, Or so he always said. Upstairs, the air grew heavier. Ava felt it in her chest, like the walls themselves were compressing the air with every breath they took. She turned her attention to the peeling wallpaper that covered the stairwell, the patterns twisting like old, forgotten memories. The flickering light above her wasn't helping. "This place has been forgotten," she muttered under her breath, stepping forward into what looked like an abandoned office. But as she entered, something shifted in her mind. The floorboards creaked, not under her feet, but somewhere else. Her breath hitched as she spun around. But no one was there. The hallway stretched endlessly, the shadows lingering in corners that didn't exist before. The room, however, was pristine, too clean, too perfect for a building that had been untouched for so many years. Ava's camera caught something in the corner, a small photograph, pinned on the wall. The image was faded, but she could still make out two figures standing beside a large wooden door. The photograph had been taken decades ago, and yet there was something deeply unsettling about the figures in the photo. They weren't smiling. They were waiting. Downstairs, Maya heard the same noise, the floorboard groaning underfoot, echoing louder than it should. She looked around, her fingers nervously tracing the symbols in her notebook. Something didn't feel right, but it wasn't until she turned to Reed, standing next to the door, that she felt it. "Reed," she began, voice barely a whisper. "Do you feel that?" Reed glanced up, eyes unfocused for a moment. "What?" "The temperature," she said, glancing over her shoulder the long corridor that stretched away from them. It just dropped. The chill was tangible, like something from another time was creeping into the room. Theo, who had been silent up until this point, moved towards the back of the building. His movements were stiff, calculated. "Let's get back to the main floor. We can set up camp," and he stopped mid-sentence, a strange look crossing his face as he stared down the hallway. At first, Maya thought it was nothing, just a trick of the light. But as Theo continued to stare, she saw it too. The shadow was moving, like it had memory. Theo froze, his flashlight trembling slightly in his grip as the dark smear at the end of the hallway lengthened, then breathed. It didn't shift like a normal shadow. It didn't flicker or bend with light. It simply existed, like a smear of void in the shape of a man. Maya whispered, "That's not possible." Theo took a cautious step back. "I saw a shadow, but there's nothing to cast it." Then the hallway behind them groaned. Not the wood, not the pipes. The walls themselves gave a low, guttural creak, like ribs under pressure. Ava's voice crackled over their walkies. "Guys, I think you all need to see this." Down in the central stairwell, Ava stood over a broken wall panel that had slid open by itself. Behind it, a spiral staircase wound downward into an area not listed on the original plans. "Sublevel?" Reed asked, returning from the upper wing with a pale face. Ava nodded. "Not listed, not even sealed. It's like it's been opened recently." "Or never closed," Maya muttered. Theo glanced behind them. The hallway they'd just come from was different. The light had changed. The angles were wrong. Was that corridor longer before? No one answered. They descended into the sublevel one by one. The stairs were stone, not concrete, and they seemed carved, not built. There was no dust, just dampness, like whatever lay beneath had been breathing all this time. At the bottom, the door wasn't locked. It was ajar. The room beyond it was small, circular, lit faintly by a single bulb that flickered but never died. The walls were covered in scratched symbols, etched violently into the stone, not with tools but with nails. In the center of the room was an iron chair, bolted to the floor, leather straps dangling from its arms. Luca stared at it, lips parted. That's not medical. That's ceremonial. Maya was tracing the symbols with her fingertips. Her hand stopped at one, her voice catching in her throat. "I've seen this before. In folklore. A house that remembers. A place that keeps pieces of people. It doesn't haunt, it rewrites." Reed looked at her. "Rewrites what?" She looked up. Reality. They backed out of the room as a low knocking sound echoed from the walls, not from one place, but from everywhere. Faint, hollow, as if someone or something was trapped inside the walls themselves. Then came the screaming, not from outside, not from above, from Ava's camera. She'd set it down while exploring. It had been recording the whole time, but now the audio began distorting, cutting through frequencies, and underneath the static, a voice was whispering her name. "Ava, do you remember now? You were here before." Ava dropped the camera, her skin pale. "That's my voice." "No," Luca whispered, rewinding the audio. "That's your voice, but from before this trip." Everyone stared at the screen, and there, in a single frozen frame from the footage, Ava's face, years younger, standing in front of this very staircase. Frames blurred on the camera screen as Luca rewound the footage again and again. Ava's face, unmistakably hers, stood on the landing, older than she was now, and yet before this trip had ever taken place. "That's not deep fake," he said, voice hollow. "It's not CGI. It's raw footage from our camera. But that," he pointed, "that's you, Ava." Ava's hands trembled as she took the camera from him and stared at the screen. The frame flickered again, and for just a moment, her eyes in the video met hers, and winked. She dropped the camera. Theo caught it before it hit the ground. "We're not just recording things," he said slowly. "Something in this place is recording us." Maya looked ill. "It's not just showing us the past. It's stitching pieces of memory together. You've been here before, Ava. Maybe we all have." Reed's hand went to the back of his neck. "You think this place resets people? Or absorbs them?" Maya muttered. Upstairs, the layout had already begun to shift. Walls weren't where they had been. Doors that led to closets now opened into new corridors. When Theo tried to retrace his path to the entryway, he ended up back at the main foyer, even though he never turned around. "Impossible," he muttered. Unless the house had begun to fold. Back in the sublevel, Ava stood before the iron chair, heart pounding. There were scratches along the base of the wall, 5 notches in groups like tally marks. Beneath them, scrawled in chalk barely visible anymore. "Forgot 4X. Do not sit." Luca called from the hallway. "You need to see this." She followed him to a narrow room just behind the furnace. Inside, the walls were covered with photos, grainy, sepia-toned pictures dating back to the 1950s, and some even older. But near the end of the row were color photographs. Modern. One showed Reed, standing outside the building, hands in his pockets. Another showed Maya, sleeping in her tent from 2 nights ago. And one, the most recent, showed Ava, staring directly into the lens from behind the camera. It had been taken seconds ago. Ava turned slowly. No one was there. Something inside the house shifted again. A deep vibration in the walls, like a sigh. "I want to leave," Maya said, stepping back, tears in her eyes. "We need to go. We need to go now." No signal. No GPS. No direction. Luca said flatly, "We can walk into the woods, but there's no guarantee we'll ever leave the loop." "What loop?" Reed asked. Luca pointed to the photographs. "We've been here before. I think we never left." Theo pulled out the drone footage on his tablet, recorded the morning they arrived. "Here's something," he said. "The building has a shadow." "So?" Reed asked. Theo zoomed in. "It shifts, while the building doesn't. It moves around the house." Ava narrowed her eyes. "Like something circling?" Theo nodded. "No," Maya whispered, staring at the scratch tally marks again, like something's watching. From the outside. Suddenly, the power flickered. Then everything went dark. A moment later, every flashlight, camera, and tablet turned on at once. On their own. All screens displayed the same frame. The 5 of them, standing in the exact room they were in now, but from a high, impossible angle. And in the corner of the frame, a 6th figure stood motionless in the upper left corner of the frame. Tall, blurred, human in shape, but wrong, like a person sketched too quickly and never corrected. The others stared at the screen in silence, none daring to speak first. Who was filming this? Luca finally asked, his voice thin. No one, Ava replied. We've never had a camera up there. Theo flipped through the camera feeds. There's no device placed above this room. That angle doesn't exist. It does now, Maya whispered, stepping away from the group. It's making new spaces, new watchers. Reed leaned in. Pause it. Zoom. They did. The figure became grainier, more distorted. Its head was tilted, its limbs oddly long, like someone caught mid-transformation. But the face, or what should have been a face, was empty, just a smooth patch of skin where features should be. Theo whispered, That's not a person. Suddenly, a loud slam echoed down the corridor. A door, far away but unmistakable. Then another, and another, doors closing in sequence, as if something or someone was moving room by room, coming closer. Ava grabbed her flashlight and backed toward the stairs. Up, now. They ascended quickly, the sound of closing doors growing louder with each step. When they reached the second floor, the hallway was different again. Where there were once 3 doors, now there were 7, evenly spaced, all closed, all identical. Reed swore under his breath. It's not just reshaping, it's growing. Luca's tablet beeped. He looked down. New file received. Final_exit.mp4. He didn't open it. They chose a room to take shelter in. It looked like an old patient dormitory. Bed still made, dust undisturbed. Theo blocked the door with a dresser. Ava checked the windows. They faced an exterior courtyard, but even that looked wrong. The walls shifted further apart when you weren't looking directly at them. Reed stared at the beds. I used to work in places like this. Not this exactly, but institutions. And I've seen how buildings change people. The silence, the routines, the forgetting. Maya sat on the edge of a bed, hugging her knees. But this place doesn't want us to forget. It wants us to remember something. Theo, finally opening the video on the tablet, flinched. What is it? Ava asked. He turned the screen toward them. It was them, from earlier that day, entering the asylum. But in this video, something was different. Reed didn't appear. Instead, where he should have been, the same featureless figure stood in his place. Reed stood up. That's not me? But it was where you were, Maya said softly. We all saw you walk through that door. Ava slowly turned to Reed. Why didn't you appear on the recording? Reed didn't answer. And in that silence, the hallway moaned. Lights flickered again. The 6th door down the corridor creaked open, slowly, as if welcoming them. Ava whispered, It's calling someone. No one moved. Then Reed said, I think I'll take a look. Look was all Ava could do as Reed stepped toward the 6th door. He didn't hesitate, didn't ask for backup. He just placed his hand on the knob, glanced over his shoulder once, the way someone might before heading into another room in their own home, and vanished inside. The door closed behind him without a sound. Theo was the first to speak. We should stop him. But no one moved, because in the quiet after Reed's departure, something shifted again, not in the building, but in the air between them, as if Reed had taken a piece of truth with him, and what remained was thinner, looser, less trustworthy. Maya broke the silence. He wasn't surprised by that video. Not really. You're saying he already knew, Luca said. Ava nodded slowly. Or remembered. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time inside the asylum had become elastic. They waited for a sound, a scream, anything. When Theo finally approached the door and cracked it open, it led to an empty hallway. Not the same hallway they had just come from. Not even close. Where the hell are we? Luca asked. The floor was now marble instead of tile. The lights overhead buzzed softly, and long glass windows lined the wall. Outside was not forest, not courtyard, but blackness, like the building floated in a void. In one of the glass reflections, Ava saw it again. That faceless figure. It was standing beside her. She spun around. Nothing. This place isn't haunted, Maya muttered, flipping through her notebook. It's possessed. Not by a ghost or demon, but by memory. It stores versions of us. Copies. And when it doesn't get what it wants, it edits, Theo said grimly. Ava's hand went to her camera. We need to find Reed before something rewrites him completely. As they moved through the mirror hallway, the walls began to hum, a low, constant vibration that passed through bone. At the far end, a door waited. A symbol had been burned into its center, the same symbol from Maya's journal. She gasped, "No one ever drew this for me. I dreamed it." Ava stared at her. "What do you mean?" Maya's voice trembled. "Before this trip, I've had the same dream for weeks. I walk into a building I've never seen, but I know it's mine. I go through this door, and when I open it, I always wake up screaming." Theo reached for the handle. Ava stopped him. "If this place is alive, what if this door is its mouth?" No one laughed. The comparison felt too accurate. Behind them, the sound of footsteps. Quick, Bear. They turned, expecting Reed. It wasn't. It was Ava, or a version of her. She stood at the other end of the corridor in the same clothes, but soaked in water, as if she'd been submerged for hours. Her eyes were open too wide. Her lips moved. No sound. Maya whispered, "Is that real?" Theo took a step forward. The doppelganger vanished. Not turned, not ran, just blinked out of existence, like a skipped frame in a corrupted video. Luca stared ahead. "We need to leave, or we'll be replaced too." The door behind them opened by itself, and from inside, Reed's voice called softly, "You should see this." This was not a hospital. At least, not anymore. The moment they stepped through the door where Reed's voice had beckoned, the air changed. It was warmer, close, like being inside a giant mouth. The hallway behind them vanished. The walls turned black, not painted black, not scorched, just black, like light refused to exist within them. Only the floor remained illuminated, a thin path of sickly green fluorescence guiding them deeper. Reed stood at the far end, back to them, hands clasped behind his back. Ava approached slowly. "Reed!" He didn't answer. Theo drew closer, hesitated. "Where did you go?" Reed turned, slowly, deliberately, and his face was smiling. Calm, collected. "I remembered," he said. Ava stopped. "Remembered what?" Reed's smile didn't falter. "That we built this place." Silence. No one moved. "No," Maya whispered. "This place is from the 1950s. You're barely in your 40s. Reed tilted his head. "Not me. Not this Reed. But one of me. One of us. I remember things now. I've lived here many times." Luca took a step back. "You're not making sense." "I wasn't supposed to," Reed said. "That's how the house protects itself. It makes us forget. Every time someone learns too much, the loop resets. But the truth is simple." He pointed upward. "This house doesn't haunt people. It copies them, bit by bit, version by version." Ava's stomach turned. "You're not the original Reed," she said. He smiled. "I don't think I ever was." Suddenly, alarms blared through the walls. Sirens from no source. Lights pulsed red. The floor beneath them shuddered, and the thin line of light marking their path began to move, leading deeper, drawing them further and like a fuse burning toward detonation. "Run," Theo shouted, but Ava didn't move. She was staring at the far wall, where a massive screen flickered to life and showed them something no one was ready to see. A video feed. Them, 5 figures, sitting in a circle in this very room. But their clothes were different, their faces older. The conversation was muted, but their mouths moved in the same patterns, the same rhythm, over and over again. Theo's voice broke. "We've been here, before, again and again." "And each time," Maya said shakily, "one of us becomes it." A door opened behind them. Inside, hundreds of reels, labeled with names, dates, photos. Ava, Luca, Maya, Theo, Reed, multiple versions. Some scratched out, some still waiting. Waiting wasn't passive here. It was hungry, As Ava stepped into the real room, a low vibration traveled through the floor into her bones. The shelves were lined with dusty metal canisters, each labeled with a name and a year. Some of the years hadn't happened yet. Some of the names had never been spoken aloud. She picked one at random. Maya, 2023, B, exit denied. Her blood ran cold. There are multiple versions of us. Maya stared at the rows, her knees trembling. We've been here before, and not all of us made out. Reed, or what remained of Reed, stood beside a shelf labeled Root Sequences. I tried to tell you, he said softly. This place isn't a building. It's a device, a machine designed to recreate the same conditions, again and again, until what? Theo asked. Reed smiled. Until it finds the right version of you. A sudden shriek rang through the air. Not human, an animalistic, hollow cry, like a wolf coughing up static. They turned toward the noise. The corridor had changed again. The walls now pulsed, expanding and contracting like lungs. Luca whispered, "This place isn't just copying us. It's evolving." Something burst around the corner. At first, it looked human, but it ran like a beast, on all fours, its arms too long, its face unfinished. It lunged for Theo, but Ava shoved him aside. The creature hit the wall and merged into it, like wax melting into hot stone. Gone. Did you see that? Maya gasped. It didn't die. It went home. Theo looked at Ava, breath ragged. We have to burn this place. You can't, Reed said gently. It doesn't live in wood or brick. It lives in time. Fire only makes new versions. Maya backed away from the reels. Then how do we stop it? Reed looked at her, solemn. You don't. The light changed. It was morning, but no one had slept. They were back in the foyer, except it wasn't the foyer. It was an exact replica, but not the original. Luca checked his camera. Empty memory, he muttered. Everything's wiped. Ava's reflection in the cracked mirror didn't blink when she did. Theo raised his crowbar and smashed it. Behind the mirror, a reel. Ava, current 001. Ava snapped. No more loops. She picked up the reel, turned to Reed. What happens if we destroy this? Reed tilted his head. You might forget. She slammed it to the ground. The lights died. In the dark, a door opened. Cold air swept through, and from it, another Ava stepped out, bruised, bleeding, one arm broken. She looked around in horror. Please, not again. Ava collapsed to her knees. Maya whispered, It's not letting us go. It doesn't have to, Theo said. He reached for the remaining reels. We can burn the source. All of it. Source reels were stacked deep in the lowest chamber, a sub-basement even Reed hadn't seen before. They'd broken through a false wall after Theo smashed the mirror, uncovering a narrow staircase of rusted iron that spiraled downward. The steps groaned with every footfall. Cold didn't just cling to the air down here. It bled from it. Ava led the way, her flashlight flickering in defiance of the darkness. At the bottom, a massive circular chamber, walls covered in real shelves that curved endlessly upward like a theater or a cathedral made of memory. And in the center, a machine, ancient but alive, all wires and humming coils and something that pulsed like a heart. Every few seconds, a reel clicked into place, played a few seconds of silent footage, then ejected itself. A robotic arm plucked it up, tossed it into a bin marked rejected. Luca's voice trembled. This is it. Maya whispered. It's watching us now. Ava approached the machine. Its screen came to life. On it, footage of her from the start of their trip. Then again, slightly different clothes. Again, this time she died in the stairwell. Again, this time she screamed in the mirror room and vanished. Again, again, again. 22 versions of her. All failures. Only this one, her now, had made it this far. This is why it won't let us leave, she said, barely a whisper. We're still running. Still being tested. Theo stepped forward. Then let's fail on purpose. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a thermite charge. From the van, she said simply. Emergency use. Luca's eyes widened. You brought a bomb? I brought a door out, she replied. They placed the charge at the base of the machine. Suddenly, the chamber shook. Hard. From the shadows, dozens of figures emerged, not human, not anymore. Every failed version. Each had pieces of themselves missing. Faces blurred, mouths stretched wrong, limbs bent backward, eyes milky and hopeless. One stepped forward. A reed with a third eye burned into his forehead. You won't end it, he said. You are it. You're not Reed, Ava spat. He smiled. No, I'm just one of his tries. He lunged. Gunshots rang out. Theo's revolver barked like thunder. 2 copies dropped. More kept coming. Maya screamed, Light it now. Ava grabbed the detonator. The copies were almost on top of them. Click. Chapter 10. Word. Click. The explosion wasn't fire. Not exactly. It was memory shattering. Images flashed, childhoods, hospital hallways, faces they never met, arguments never had, lives never lived. Then silence. Then light. Ava opened her eyes under gray sky. Cold wind brushed her face. Snow. She was lying outside, just beyond the broken facade of Black Ridge Sanatorium. The building was silent, dead. Beside her, Maya groaned. Theo sat up blinking. Luca coughed. We're outside. They stood. Everything looked older, decayed, as if the house hadn't been entered in decades. Their cameras gone. Backpacks scorched. No sign of Reed, until Ava saw Real, lying in the snow. She picked it up. Reed, Architect 001. Her heart dropped. He built it, she said. The first version. Long ago. Maya nodded, lips pale. And every version since, just pieces of him trying to fix it. Theo turned to the ruins. Then who brought us here? Ava didn't answer. She turned the reel over. On the back, written in old ink, Ava, final, approved. And in her pocket, something cold. She reached in. A film canister. Not burned. Not labeled. Just a blank reel. Still waiting. The end.